Warning: the Chaotic Culture Podcast is a program for mature audiences. The language and content presented in this podcast is of a mature nature that some audiences may not find suitable. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.
Embrace the culture, blaze the doja, grab your loved ones and bring them closer. Extra, extra, read the poster, the KKP is taking over. Sleeping on me, better smell the Folgers. I've been razor sharp since the Motorola. Off for O, like the cover Oprah. Popping bottles, feet all in the sofa. It's a celebration, though the times is hard. It's raining blessings, give it up to God. Chaotic culture, the greatest pod. With Ked the Pro, the one in charge. But it's a celebration, times is hard. It's raining blessings, give it up to God. Chaotic culture, the greatest pod. With Ked the Pro, the one in charge.
We're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. We're living in a chaotic culture. We're living in a chaotic culture. We're living in a chaotic culture.
Good morning, all, and welcome to another edition of the Chaotic Culture Podcast. This is your host, your boy, Ked the Pro, a.k.a. the Calculated Millennial, a.k.a. the Cutlass Diamond, a.k.a. don't be pushing on my buttons in my Cutlass unless you cutting. If you joined us for last week's episode, I just want to say I can't thank you enough for tuning in. We definitely had an important conversation regarding clout chasing and why that is so dangerous to our society as a whole. It's one thing when you want to be a part of either a movement or some kind of fad or any kind of challenge, and you're doing it for fun, and your followers, whether it be on Twitter, on Instagram, or TikTok, explode because you were just doing it naturally and everyone gravitated to the way you did your challenge. It's another when you decide that you want to get a mass amount of followers by doing reckless and stupid behavior that could either get you in trouble or, unfortunately, could get you killed. And it's important that we talk to our generation about that, especially those who are Generation Z and young millennials, because it's out there on the internet on a consistent basis where people decide to put their lives at risk just to build a following. I don't ever want to get caught doing that. I want to do it the natural way, at least from my perspective. In order for this platform to grow, I have to be certain that I can grow my followers naturally. I'm not going to sit here and do outlandish things just for attention, because I don't know what those consequences could lead to. So with that being said, while you're on social media, please just be sure that you are not putting your life at risk in order to gain followers. Don't do it. It's not worth it. But anyway, I wanted to lead off this episode first by giving a shout out to Law and to NASA. Now, neither of them are here with me right now. I'm not doing a solo episode per se. I do have an interview coming up later on in the episode, which I hope that you all will look forward to listening to that. But I definitely wanted to give a shout out to those two. Those two really have helped this platform get to where it needs to be and have continued to put in the work along with myself to be sure that this program and this platform exceeds my expectations. And I can honestly say without those two, I don't know where this platform would be. So I'm grateful, I'm thankful that God has placed those two in my life. So now that I got the formalities out the way, Since they're not here, of course, just be sure that you go follow Law on Twitter at Law96_ or on Instagram at L.JR_96. NASA, is still taking a bit of a hiatus, but if you still want to go follow her pages, just be sure that you go to Instagram and Twitter at _callmenasa. So with that in mind, today's episode is really going to focus on home ownership in the black community and why that is so crucial for us as African Americans in the United States of America. My guest is a Hamptonian, someone who I've known for 10 years now. It's 2021, so I met her in 2011. I'll give more on how I met her throughout the interview, but I did want to present to you Mariah Bellamy, who I affectionately still call Mimi. Now, Mariah has been involved in plenty of ventures, and one thing that I will say about Hamptonians, I have not seen a Hamptonian yet that has not strived to be greater or to do great things in whatever human endeavor they decide to participate in. There's a reason why they call the school the standard of excellence. And it's really a proud moment for me and a proud moment to see that Hamptonians are out here doing great work. Not only whether it's in the community or whether it's fame, whether it's just to promote themselves, whether it's to uplift the school, they're out here putting in real work. And Mariah is no exception. Born in the Carolinas, of course, she is currently in Las Vegas. And there are a few of ventures that she has pursued out there. The one thing that we will discuss, of course, is the venture of home ownership. Of course, she is a realtor out there. And with that, I wanted to point out a few things about why the conversation of home ownership is so important. It goes without saying that it's only a small number of African Americans who own their home. Matter of fact, anywhere between 42.7% and 44% of African Americans in the United States own a home. 42.7 to 44%. That's an incredibly low number. It's very alarming considering, but there's reason for that. Of course, we know that there is systemic racism within real estate and within the home ownership process. We also know that there are many young millennials and many who are in Generation Z who are, graduating that have burdensome debt, me included. This is mainly in student loans. So they feel as though because they have this burdensome debt that they have to take care of almost immediately, they are not able to invest in real estate or invest in owning a home because they're more focused on getting rid of that burdensome debt. And then there's a good bit of us that just don't know the process. We have no idea what our debt to income ratio is. We have no idea what our credit score looks like. We have no idea of how to start or where to start as far as investing in real estate and owning a home. So it's important that we get that information out there to you, our audience, and maybe to your family members if they're not listening to this. But if you gain something from this actual interview, go back to your family and friends and take that information to them so that way they can get started. We're going to have more than one episode on this. So do your part. We as a community have got to be better. Especially considering that she is in an area where less than 30% of African Americans own their home. And I'm speaking for the entire state of Nevada in general, not just her county that she works in. And that's really sad and really troubling, especially considering that African Americans maybe make up anywhere between 45 to 50 million people in the United States. Only 40% of the entire African American community in the United States owns their home, and then less than 30 in each state. That is really, really, really disturbing. But we're going to find ways to overcome those systemic challenges, as well as find ways to overcome that burdensome debt. This is what this platform is for. There's a lot of chaos within our culture in general. And then there are some things that are beyond our control. But we're going to find a solution one way or the other. So with that in mind, before I get to the interview, I just want to say that by the time you hear this, it will be the end of February. It'll be March. So I do hope that you enjoyed Black History Month. I hope that you learned something about our predecessors, and I hope you take that information with you from now until forever. If you didn't learn anything during this Black History Month, be sure that you go out of your way to learn something about one of your ancestors or one of your predecessors who made a difference, not only in your community, but just the entire African American community at large. And we're not just talking about the main features like Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm X or Rosa Parks. Learn something new every day that you can. So, with that in mind, let's cut to the chase. Let's go ahead and get to the interview with Miss Mariah Bellamy. Don't move. We'll be right back. This message is brought to you by Already Paid. Already Paid is more than a brand. It's a lifestyle. Where else can you find the richest quality apparel for the lowest price? Shop with us at foreverap.com and join the Already Paid family, or find our Black-owned business located at Stony Point Mall in Richmond, Virginia. You can also follow us at AP Styles, that's APSTYLSS, on Instagram. Be you. Get paid. Forever. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, my next guest at this time, I got to give a background story here. So I ended up meeting her in 2011, actually, now that I think about it. It was the second semester of her freshman year and the second semester of my sophomore year at Hampton University. I actually met her during Battle of the States, but we really didn't connect as friends until maybe about a month afterwards. And then we've been, we would show up at the same events, or sometimes she would come to the crib if we were having a kickback. And we really got to know each other really well, and I honestly consider her a good friend of mine. She joined the drumline for 1 year, and then afterwards, of course, she focused on graduating as I was trying to get out of there myself. And, the rest is history from there. She's been doing a lot, and I definitely wanted to bring her on here because she is I think she can give a lot of insight into her trade. So I definitely wanted to bring her on here. Back then I called her Mimi, but I do want to formally introduce to you Mariah Bellamy. Say what's going on, Mariah. How you doing?
Hey everybody, how you doing? Thank you for that great introduction.
Hey, not a problem, not a problem. So, go ahead, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Anything else that I haven't spoken of course, obviously.
Okay, yeah, so again, my name is Mariah Bellamy. I am from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Carolinas represent.
Absolutely. My family, they come actually from South Carolina, one half of the family.
Hey.
So definitely Carolina through and through. I was actually a military brat, so we moved around a lot, but Carolinas definitely is home base for me. Let's see. Backgrounds. I did graduate high school in Michigan, so I do have lots of friends from there, from Michigan. Very cold, never going back again.
Hey.
Then, so like you said, I definitely, we met at Hampton. So I graduated from Hampton in 2014 with the finance degree.
Word.
I don't work in finance today.
It happens.
Funny enough, it happens, right? So I actually never intended on working in corporate America when I decided to pursue that degree in the first place. It was really a personal endeavor for me. I was like, if I'm going to be paying for a degree, what degree will be the most fulfilling for me? What will be challenging? What will guarantee me a position no matter what happens?
Right.
And that's kind of where that led me. Originally, I wanted to be a doctor, funny enough. And I don't practice medicine either. So much has changed. Since then, so much has changed. So currently, fast forward to today, I am the director of operations at a brand new charter school in Las Vegas, Nevada. Yes. There's a lot of, reasons why we moved there, but that's what I do today. And I'm also a realtor in the Valley. So kind of balancing two careers at the moment.
Hey, that's still pretty amazing. The fact that you're doing, in real estate and you went and was a part of a charter school or are part of a charter school, excuse me. I'm not using past tense here. But yeah, just the fact that you're doing both of these amazing things, that speaks a lot of volume, to what you want out of life. And just for me personally, I'm like, wow, you are doing a whole lot more. And but even then when we first met, I was like, she's gonna be taking on a lot of ventures, and I like the way her mind works, and I like where she's thinking. So I think that's why I believe we connected so well, because it's just like, okay, she knows where she wants to go, and even if she doesn't, she's got backup plans and ways to make sure that she's successful.
Absolutely. Failure is not an option for me. It's always been about my family and building generational wealth. I come from a lower income household, lower middle class. We didn't always have everything growing up. We had what we needed, and I always wanted more for my family. So for me, every move that I make is strategic, and there's a reason behind me doing it.
Right.
I don't believe in fruitless ventures. So.
Yeah, I definitely get that, and I definitely understand that. Trust me, I done ran into a couple of those here and there. It's like, this ain't gonna get money in my pocket immediately, or it's really not gonna work. I'm gonna leave that alone. So, and you can attest to that, because unfortunately, me and you both were looking at, unfortunately, pyramid schemes, and we're just like, yeah, I see how this is going to turn out. But
right, better don't.
Yeah. But that being said, we've both come a long way, and I'm still excited that you have joined me today, to talk about that journey. If I could just begin to ask, where did you get the idea to start a charter school? Like, what motivated you into, finding that?
Yeah. So absolutely. So further background. The number one reason why I did not become a doctor is because my senior year of high school was actually in a traumatic car accident. And I had a brain injury and had a lot of brain developmental issues and cognitive issues coming into Hampton. Now, I didn't take any time off. So like that accident happened. I was in a coma. It was really tragic. I fractured my skull. It was a lot going on. I didn't actually finish my senior year of high school, but my neurologist said it's better for my recovery if I continue taking courses. So I proceeded with the plan, went to Hampton. I was struggling with remembering things. School was very challenging for me, and that was never the case. I was a straight A student. I never really had to study. I just paid attention and focused, and I could remember things. I took notes. But when I got there, I mean, it was really challenging for me to remember things. I was struggling with content, retention, understanding concepts. And so I was like, dang, if I can't remember what we talked about yesterday, I don't want to be anybody's doctor. So I had to think about, what is my next step? Because I can't continue going on this path if it's not going to be successful for me. So then I started thinking about what it is that I like to do. And all my volunteer work surrounded children. And so I was like, well, maybe let me look into that. I looked into Teach for America. I did a Teach for America internship while I was there, and I worked on the operations side. And I kind of saw a little bit of ins and outs and looked a lot more into what's going on in our education system here in America. And being, growing up as a Black child in America, there are lots of things that you're aware of and lots of things you're not aware of. Indeed. Your exposure is everything. And so I'm the oldest. I have lots of siblings. And as I'm watching them matriculate through school, I was just kind of like, there are some things that are not right here. I didn't feel like my brothers, particularly, who were growing up in school in Charlotte, they weren't receiving the best that they could receive. They were going to a good school, but they weren't treated appropriately, in my opinion. They weren't receiving the best classes on their schedules. Their teachers were kind of coddling them or holding them back. For example, my brother in his senior year, he needed to take a second foreign language. Most people know you need 2 foreign languages to get into college. It's kind of like a standard requirement. Yep. His counselor told him that he wasn't college bound and that he could take his second Spanish at a community college, and they put him in library science. Wow. So, all these things, combining together, I'm like, well, what kind of world do I want my children to kind of grow up in? This world is not meant for us. And understanding that, I believe truly in my heart that education in America is the #1 social justice issue of today. Yes, it kind of, it just bleeds into everything else. And I started being very interested in working with schools. Now, charter is very different than public schools, but in the back of my mind, I said, well, one day I'm going to open my own charter. I kind of just put it out there. And so I started my education career in Charlotte. I was teaching at a Title I high school in Charlotte. I taught there for 5 years. I was the department chair for math. I managed all of the math classrooms at that school for 4 of those 5 years that I was there. Okay. And I really enjoyed that. I'm from Charlotte. I was very familiar with the school. It was, it was rough, but I loved the kids. And that's what it was about for me. And so fast forward during that process, another fellow Hamptonian, one of my good friends, Beyonce Gaines, she had mentioned to me, she was like, hey, sis, I'm trying to open up a school in Baltimore because that's where she's from. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm interested in that, going down that same venture, doing that for me later on in the future. At the moment, I was not ready. And so what ended up happening, I knew of a program that kind of helped people organize and get prepared for opening up a charter school. And so I kind of introduced her to that program and kind of got her plugged in with that group of people. She applied, she got accepted into the fellowship, and she started working on the school. From that point, she was like, sis, I got a job for you if you want to relocate. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like, Vegas is not where I saw myself going in my life. If you would have told me at any point in my life that I would be living in Las Vegas, I would not believe you. But the city of Las Vegas and the zip code specifically that we're in is the worst ranked zip code for student achievement in the state of Nevada. And Nevada ranks 50 in the country. So you could argue and say that the zip code that we're targeting is the worst zip code in the country.
Wow.
And that zip code is primarily Black and brown children.
Wow.
And so, like,
go figure.
So you can see, you know, how things are lining up, and to what my core values are, like what I'm passionate about and how I got there. So now I direct and run all the operations for the school. So anything from hiring to buses to lunch program to teacher development, anything that makes the school run is kind of under my umbrella.
Okay. Wow. That actually answered one of the other questions that I had, because I was getting ready to ask you, why Las Vegas? You know, because that seems like from Charlotte to Las Vegas seems like such a big jump. So, but you did excellent in answering that question before I can even get to it. So, that definitely helps me understand your journey and why that came to be. Did you have any other areas that you were thinking about maybe relocating to, like once you've done with this venture, or is Las Vegas like where you're permanently at right now?
No. So definitely don't see Las Vegas as a home.
Okay.
We kind of joke around. She's like, sis, you know, you're gonna open up a secondary school. I don't know about that. I'm very family oriented. I'm very and my family is nowhere near Nevada.
Right.
My family is in either the Carolinas, or my mom's side, they're from Louisiana, they're from New Orleans. So it's kind of like there's no one over here. Have one aunt in LA, but that's about it. It just is not, the schools here are bad. I can't, and if I'm thinking about my family and I'm thinking about, you know, the future, I know I have to be living in a space that's going to benefit them. And regardless of the school that I'm personally running, there has to be more options. Like, I can't control every aspect of my future children's lives. Therefore, it's kind of like, if I'm only controlling one sector of grades, what's going to be happening when they're not at the school, when they're either above or below me, and I can't afford to make that type of decision, you know, based on my comfortability. It has to be about them. So I do not plan on staying there.
I got you.
I'm gonna help B get this school off the ground, and then we'll kind of see where things take me from there.
Okay. Well, hey, sounds like you got a major plan going. Now in regards to you know, being in education right now, I have to ask, because this is an ongoing situation, you know, how has has COVID-19 just been one of those major setbacks that you've had to deal with as of late?
Absolutely. So we actually were supposed to open the doors for children and for teachers last school year. As everyone knows, COVID kind of emerged and came into fruition like all through the spring. So like last spring, cities were shut down. Everything was very uncertain. It was a big question mark about like when things were going to start getting better, like what was happening. So in May of last year, I just didn't feel comfortable when I'm thinking about student safety, teacher safety, like liability. If I don't know what's about to happen, I can't risk putting your life on the line, putting a child's life on the line, because the conversation will be with me if a child were to lose their life because of COVID. That's the conversation that I have to have with the parent.
Right.
That's not what I was trying to have. So one life is too many. And at that point, I was just like, maybe Beyonce, maybe we should kind of put this on pause for a second. And so we kind of have a better understanding about what's happening with this virus and what the country's going to do, what the state's going to do. So we put everything on pause, and now we're revamping up everything again to open up in August.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good, and honestly, I agree with you. Even in my position, it's like, man, I don't want to put anybody in any kind of danger. Just
Mm-hmm.
from it's something as simple as running a car. Like, I have to make sure that I take the extra step to be sure that everybody here is safe and that we're not exposing each other in any shape or form. So I'm glad that with you thinking of the children, and of course of yourself, but mainly of the children, like you don't want to have that conversation with a parent like, yeah, so that's not something that I hope that you or other people would not have on their conscience as well. um
Exactly. Yep.
so
So
good, good, good. So with that in mind, now I do understand that with you having to put everything on pause, that you've brought up that you were into real estate. Did COVID-19, help you make that transition into real estate, or was that something that you've always had in the back of your head?
a little bit of both. It's I was always interested in real estate on the investor side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not necessarily the realtor broker side. And
Okay.
so previously I had dabbled in investing and kind of looking into what I wanted that to look like for my family. Um, COVID just kind of brought a plethora of time.
Yeah.
I'm no longer working in a school, from morning to afternoon. I just had so much more time on my hands. And I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, what am I going to do with all this time? Luckily, I just finished my master's degree. So I was done with school.
Okay.
Um, and I was like, what else? What is there now? Like, I no longer was working in a school. I no longer was in school myself. And I just was
Right.
like, what can I do that it will be a good strategic move for me to utilize this time? Um, so I just kind of decided, like, I'll go to real estate school. My best friend had just become a realtor in Charlotte. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, I always wanted to kind of get involved, but you don't have to be an agent to be an investor. So that
Right.
was never um, on my site to do, but I do see the benefits of doing it. Um, for me, it's about education still. It's still about education.
Right.
Black communities, Black families, marginally do not have a good home ownership representation. And a lot of it
Yeah.
is due to the lack of information. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't know what they can afford, don't know what they can do, don't know what they need to do.
Right.
And that's really the main barrier between them being renters for life and them being homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think about, I care about children, Black children specifically, that are in low income communities. It does me no good if I'm sitting here doing everything I can for this child, but not doing everything I can for that child's family, because that child goes home and they're
Mm-hmm.
now, like I have to be able to provide resources and understanding and information to the family, because when you build with the family, you ultimately change the community. You
Right.
can't do anything if you're just dealing with the child. The child is a child.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
So if you're really trying to make change, you have to really get out there. You have to volunteer, be a part of the community, and see which ways that you can help. And so for me, real estate was a good way to do that. I can benefit from that personally, but I'm also providing resources and information and guidance to people who may not otherwise have it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what kind of drove me in that direction.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate the candor here because, as you said, man, it for you to be able to help both the children and their families, that is just a testament to your core values. And honestly, you don't get enough of that just in the real world in general. I wish I ran into some people who were, just as caring for the child as for the parents, excuse me, as they were for the child. And that's and I can really appreciate that. One thing that I did want to ask, because specifically, as you said, that it's unfortunate that Black home ownership is it's the way that it is because there's not enough information out there, and a lot of Black families don't know what they can and can't do in regards to
Mhm.
owning a home. So, like, what are some myths that you want to debunk about real estate home ownership or investing in real estate and home ownership?
I think the a major myth is that you have to put 20% down to buy a home. That's not true at all.
Okay.
Actually, for most FHA loans, the minimum requirement is 3.5%.
See, even I didn't know
And
that.
yes. And on top of that, there are so many programs for down payment assistance. A lot of times you don't have to put down much at all. You can get support for that. First time homeowners definitely get a benefit. There are a lot of incentives and programs out there to assist in that regard. People also think that you need to have a 750 credit score. Also not true.
Well,
I mean, you can get approved as low as 620.
Okay.
It just depends on what else you have going on. Do you have a lot of debt? Is your debt to income ratio below 36%? Like, what does that look like? What does your financial picture look like as a whole? Before you can like completely cut yourself out. In my mind, if you're paying $2,400 a month to rent somebody's house, you can purchase your own house. You know, there's people out here renting people's houses.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, if you can do that, think about that. Like the amount that you pay in rent is going to always be significantly higher than the amount you're going to pay for your mortgage. Hands down.
Very true.
So.
Very true. I have to agree with you on that, especially because I worked in car rentals and it's kind of the same thing. I've seen people who've been in rental cars for over a year and I'm like, you are paying $1,200 a month to stay in that rental car when you could go down to enterprise car sales and your monthly payment may be as low as, well, mine is like $248. So I'm like, your monthly payment can be probably even lower than that. And you sitting here renting a car for $1,200 a month. What are you doing? So everything that you were saying makes absolutely perfect sense to me, especially with me just seeing this information about cars. And it's like, well, the only bad part about it is that I deal with depreciating vehicles. Thankfully, Enterprise, what they do is they usually just they're 1 to 3 year models, so they've already made all of that money by renting the cars first in the first year, so that way that depreciation will offset, so it's not like hitting the customer then and there. But that kind of brings me into the next question. Just what are some tips you can provide to help someone who is Black or a person of color like get started, as far, or if there's any resources that you recommend that they look at so that way they can get started in their home ownership journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first step is kind of just assessing where you are, writing down all your monthly expenses, your income, kind of like getting and make it just as granular as you can. Like you went to Chick-fil-A today, you need to write that down on the list. Like every expense that you're spending, it don't matter if it was $2.99 at the gas station. I want you to write it down.
Hey,
because $3 adds up. You spend $3 a day. It's 30 days in the month. You done already spent $90 on what? You don't even know. So definitely, and people think I be playing about that. I'm like, no, like you really need to understand like what your expense profile looks like to see really where you are. How much debt do you have? Do you have tons of credit cards that you sitting on right now? What does your student loans look like? just lots of things. I think and a lot of people don't want to look at that stuff because like they don't want to know. Like they're like, I don't want to look at that. I'm kind of they're timid or afraid of what they're going to see. But you're never going to get into a better position until you know what position you're in.
Right.
And it may be rough. Like your net worth may be negative. Most people within our like age bracket under 30 under 30 for sure, and then like low 30s, our net worth is not popping. It's negative.
Trash right now.
Especially if you went to college and you have a degree and you have a student loans, and like it's not looking too good. But you can't start working on that stuff until you know. Right? Like that would probably be my first step. and just becoming well versed and like understanding how to work on your credit. That's also an important thing.
Okay.
What does your credit look like? Not relying on Credit Karma. Credit Karma is not a reliable source to tell you what your credit score is. The only thing Credit Karma is good for is to recognize what accounts you have open. It will
Right.
tell you what accounts you have, which is reliable. But the score itself, lenders don't use that. They use my FICO. They use your FICO
Okay.
score. So if you really want an accurate snapshot, you want to go to myfico.com or look that up and look at that score. And what's very disheartening is when people are like, my credit score is this, and they check their FICO score and they're like, dang, it's like 100 points off. Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Don't rely on that. Don't rely on that. And just thinking long term. If you're saying, you want to buy a house this year, then maybe you shouldn't be at the car dealership buying a car this month. Like there are things that you should look at long term. Like, okay, take a moment. Do you plan on buying a house in the next year or so? If that's a yes, then you need to be more careful and more strategic about major purchases that you're making. What you're financing, if you're opening new lines of credit, like stuff like that, like all this stuff matters. And people just like, people are so quick in the moment. They're just doing stuff. They want stuff and they're not thinking, well, dang, I shouldn't have done that because I was trying to do this over here.
Right.
I definitely, if you are considering, purchasing a home, selling a home, definitely should get in contact with a realtor sooner than later. Even if you're not ready, like at that moment, a lot of times the realtor can kind of guide you in the right direction, kind of help you assess where you are, so you don't feel like you're alone and doing everything by like what you think you should be doing. It's more efficient if you actually have someone that can tell you exactly what you need to do. Get with a lender. A lender can always tell you exactly where your financial snapshot is. It's not a commitment. You talk to a lender, that doesn't mean that you have to sign a loan,
Right.
but they can definitely tell you, what it is that you need to get rid of, what it is that you need to do to kind of build your situation and make you a better candidate for home ownership.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, you just provided a lot of information. And even for me, even though what you're telling me, of course, is not new to me in certain aspects, there's a lot of info that I know a lot of our listeners will definitely appreciate. I will say that I did not know that Credit Karma was not a reliable source. So I will definitely take that one to heart. I mean, not that we use Credit Karma anyway at my dealership, but I now know, like, if I run into customers like that, I'm like, don't do that. This is what you need to do, or let us look it up for you.
Right.
So yeah, that I definitely appreciate that info on that. There is one question that I definitely want to pinpoint really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to deal with something that, of course, I read online. It was just in the news recently. I don't know if you had heard the story of the Austin family in San Francisco.
No, I'm not familiar. What?
Got it.
Okay.
So, Black family, their last name is Austin. Obviously, they had just purchased a home in San Francisco, and unfortunately, San Francisco is one of those areas where only about maybe 31% of Black people own their homes. So they, of course, they had to fight, and they finally were able to get it. So what they did was, it was an old 1960s home, but they put a lot of renovations into it, and they built it up to where it was like it really looked like an entirely different house. So they went and got it appraised. And when they saw the appraisal number, of course, the person who did it was an elderly white woman. The number that they saw was about $989,000 for that home, and to them, they felt like they were lowballed. So what they did was they got one of the white friends to pose in front of the house after they were able to get schedule another appraisal. So of course, the white friend ended up playing the wife and whatnot, as she was taking pictures with the house and everything and whatnot. And that appraisal shot up almost $500,000. So of course, the family was outraged, and rightfully so. So I think what I wanted to ask you in particular is just what are some ways that we can help eliminate systemic racism in home ownership? And do you think that this kind of systemic racism, it not only prevents but also discourages home ownership for people of color?
Yeah, that is a great point. I kind of just looked up that article you were talking about, and I'm not shocked.
Mm-hmm.
The median, I think it's the median home price in San Francisco is $1 million.
Yeah.
So it's one of the most expensive cities to live
Mm-hmm.
in the country. And so it doesn't surprise me about the huge number variance now, and the fact that the couple was Black. I support Black owned, period.
Yes.
Like, sometimes we don't be doing right, but I'm always gonna look for us first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if you're Black and you're a person of color, I would advise finding a realtor that is also a person of color in your area, because
Say
they're
that.
gonna have your best interest.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna fight for you. They're gonna go to bat for you. They're not gonna let people do things to you that are not in your best interest.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, in most cases, the lender provides the appraiser. So if you have a good realtor who has preferred lenders, their preferred
Mm-hmm.
lender is not going to send you somebody that's going to lowball you.
Okay.
Right. So like I have preferred lenders for my clients. And if I want information, or if they're working with my preferred lender, I always know that they're good.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to send they're going to send someone that they find reputable, that they believe is going to give them the best for what they have going on.
Right.
And that's just the benefit of working with the realtor in general, because you kind of have like a team that's supporting you versus just yourself, versus you going out there. If you call the bank, if you don't have a good relationship with your bank and you just sort of call any lender, they don't know. They're just going to send anybody out there, and they're looking at you like, oh, this is, the bias, the judgment, all the things that are not in our control. We cannot control the systemic racism. Right. That's not what we control. Well, what we can do is have tools and resources to kind of navigate that racism.
Mm-hmm.
So,
hey, I like that. And that's part of what this platform is, of course. And that's one of the reasons why I gave it the name Chaotic Culture, is because, well, not only in regards to millennials and Generation Z, but especially those of us who have melanin, and we have to find a way to navigate the things in our actual generation, that could help, either be a benefit to us or even a detriment to us. And that's why the topics can range. And this was something that I definitely wanted to be sure that I had someone who is as knowledgeable as you on here to talk about, because when it comes to home ownership, again, in America, 42.7% of Black Americans own their home. Out of, I guess compared to our white counterparts, which is like closer to what, 70 or a little bit over. And even just with speaking with you, knowing that that you're into that you are a realtor, I have to ask, as far as you doing your business, is it strictly within Nevada that you are doing home ownership in, or actually doing your realtor?
Yeah. So funny. Realtors cannot practice in multiple states unless they are licensed in multiple states.
Gotcha.
So that means you have to take the test in each state in which that you want to practice, and you have to have a license in that particular state. In Nevada is real extra. They want you to have a state license and a city license to practice here. So at this time, I can only represent you as your realtor here in Nevada. But I can always refer. Like, if you're saying like you want to work with me, but you live in California, well, then I'll just reach out to someone that I know in California, LA, wherever you are, and then I'll just kind of refer you that way.
Gotcha.
That's usually how that works.
Okay. All right, because I definitely wanted to be sure that I asked that question. It's like, can you only do business in Nevada, or can you do business somewhere else? Which, not, that's information that I could use, because especially if we're talking about me, who is very rapidly approaching 30, and I want to look into owning a home in the near future and whatnot, I wanted to be sure that I talk to somebody who was knowledgeable as you. So I definitely appreciate you, at least
Absolutely.
from my standpoint. So with that, I did want to ask, how can people reach out to you in regards to getting more information, or even if they want to do business with you in the state of Nevada?
Yeah, definitely. So my realtor Instagram is at SOLDBYBELL.
Mm-hmm.
My website is SOLDBYBELL.org.
Okay.
You can also, you can reach out to me. My phone number is literally everywhere, all over the internet, which is 702-285-2260.
Okay.
Definitely, you can reach out on my page. I post tips every week about growing with your wealth, and like financial tips and things like that. Now that we're about to kind of get into the home buying season, I'm about to start doing bi-weekly kind of video interfaces with people about the home buying process.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about spreading information. Like, information shouldn't cost you anything. And so for me, the more knowledgeable you are, the better off you will be. So I'm always providing information and resources and tips like that. So if you just kind of keep up with me, you'll end up probably learning more than what you did before. I don't mind sharing information, and I don't mind giving. I'm not a financial advisor. I got to make sure that I say that. I am not a financial advisor. I cannot give you financial advice. I can just tell you what I know, and then you can make your financial decisions on your own. Like,
word. Hey, it's important that you put that out there. To my audience, I have an episode on that. It's actually one of her sorority sisters. So yeah, go check that episode out. That's with Tremaine Wills. But
yeah, Tremaine. So funny he mentioned that. Yep. So I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So thank you for the shout out.
hey, not a problem.
I also do other work too. Like, I'm also I am a member of Delta. I'm also a member of Junior League. I do think that being involved is very important, no matter what lens that is.
Mm-hmm.
You can't break barriers. You can't break chains unless you're willing to be uncomfortable yourself, and you're willing to kind of get in and get dirty and kind of be present. That's important.
Right. So, once again, definitely shout out to Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Y'all definitely have a sister in the truest sense. I have to put that out there. Even if you were trying to get on and I had known, I would have been like, man, let me write her a recommendation letter if I can. I know that we each have our own processes and whatnot, but I would have, like, if you would ask me about anything, or if you needed a recommendation for anything and I could provide it, I'm like, you just tell me when and where. So that's how much I value our friendship. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do.
Yes, ma'am. So
I do want to also say, I want to plug out there, just for your listeners who's listening, if you are a educator, a teacher of any sort, if you work in the medical field, nurse, doctor, you were EMT, whatever medical field, police officer, firefighter, military. If you have any experience in any of those, you can actually receive a cash benefit for buying, selling, or refinancing a home. And so there's a program called Homes for Heroes that writes checks for people in those 5 areas at the end of closing. So if you bought a home, you get a check. If you sold a home, you get a check.
Hey.
If you finance your home, you get a check. Like it doesn't really matter. It's kind of like our way. I am an affiliate myself, so it's kind of our way of giving back. Like, yet again, here I am giving back to people who are serving our community in ways, that others are not. So.
Hey, we definitely appreciate that for the plug there. Are there any other plugs or any other shout outs that you want to give before we conclude the interview?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Hey, well, we definitely appreciate you coming on here and providing the information that you did in regards to home ownership and just even a little bit about yourself. Again, not only for this platform in general about putting on those who are, black millennials, Generation Z, but also I have, as you can see, like I have a big heart for Hamptonians because Hampton really shaped who I am today. And sometimes I love saying that, and then sometimes I'm just like, dang, man, that's the Hamptonian in me. Dang it. Like, okay. But yeah, I definitely am appreciative of the friends and family that I have there. So I'm just so glad that you were able to come on here and provide the knowledge that you did. I'm pretty sure my listeners will appreciate that as well. I'll plug your information, of course, again at the end of the interview once we conclude this portion, so that way they can know how to reach you, and especially if they have any questions, comments, or concerns. But I'm definitely going to keep more in contact with you as well myself, personally, because it's been far too long since we had like an actual in-depth conversation. Because I don't know. I think it's been a while. I can't even count how many years it's been. I think the last time like we really talk, we had, matter of fact, you had graduated. That's like the last like real conversation that we had, and then we just kind of, things happen and life happens. But I'm just
Life,
glad,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
I've been
So
busy. I've been
right,
busy.
right, and busy for good reasons. So, but I definitely appreciate you coming on here, Mimi. It really has been a pleasure and a blessing having you here. I can't thank you enough.
No problem, Ms. No, it's my pleasure. I'm always willing to help and support. Definitely, let me know if you want to further this conversation or deepen the topic or whatever the case may be, and I'll try to fit it in.
We definitely will. We definitely need to have like a series of episodes in regards to this, because it's important that our people know about this. So we will have that conversation at a later point, and we'll get stuff together in regards to the next episodes that we have on this subject. So to my audience members, don't move. We're gonna sign out. Stick around. All right, guys, that concludes today's episode of the Chaotic Culture Podcast. We once again want to thank Mariah Bellamy for coming in and sharing a bit of knowledge in regards to home ownership in the black community. So be sure that you go and follow her at SOLDBYBELL. That's all one word, SOLDBYBELL, on Instagram and on Twitter. You can also contact her through her phone number, which she, of course, gave out during the episode, or you can email her at mariahbellamy@soldbybell.org. Be sure that you continue to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Be sure that you share it with your family and friends. Go on Facebook, like us on Facebook. Go and like the Chaotic Culture Podcast page. Be sure that you also follow us on Instagram at Chaotic Culture Pod, and follow us on Twitter at chaotic_culture. If you have any suggestions, comments, concerns, any topics that you want to discuss, please feel free to reach out to us. We can use all the information and all the feedback that we can get. Also, if you're listening on Apple, please give us a 5-star review, or whatever platform that you're listening on. If there's an option for a review, give it to us, please. We need them 5 stars. The more ratings we get, the bigger our audience can grow. Do it. Just do it. Make my dream come true. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you tuning in to the Chaotic Culture Podcast. Before I leave, I just wanted to leave you with this. I'm recording this as of February 28th. By the time you hear this, this will, of course, be into March. But since today is the last day of Black History, I hope that you have gone and researched and read about some of the predecessors in our community that have fought for civil rights, that have gone on to create products, that have gone on to change the trajectory of American history as we know it. There are plenty of Black innovators and creators that were out there that are just not known in our community. Too often times, we are just subject to looking at what Malcolm X did, or what Martin Luther King Jr. did, or what Rosa Parks did. We've got to do more. We've got to learn more. That's the only way that this community will strive. Standing on the shoulders of giants, learning from our ancestors and predecessors so that we can take that knowledge into the future. But that's all I got. Thank you once again for joining us at the Chaotic Culture Podcast. We'll probably see you in about a week or so. Remember, we drop every Tuesdays and every Wednesday, depending on which day I feel like. I mean, it is what it is. But anyway, thanks for joining us. Be blessed. Be safe. God is love. Deuces.
Look, it's chaos in these streets, so let's talk about it, please. Let's hold some conversation. You see where I'm coming from. Yes, it's so amazing. Go ahead, get comfortable. You can grab a seat, take a load off your feet. Yeah, welcome to the table. We don't tell no lies over here. This ain't no fable. We just live our lives over here. We ain't no angels. We just shine our light over here. We got the power. We just showing love over here. 'Cause everybody needs some.